Welcome to Messages from the Future, a podcast dedicated to those time travelers wanting to make a lasting change in humanity. Today's guests are Yuval and Tati Pellegrina, who come from two very different futures.
Hey Yuval, I haven't seen you since the year 2020.
Oh, whoa, hey Tati. That was before the singularity. I remember just a few decades ago when we were still in writing class pondering over whether swarming behavior could be implemented in artificial intelligence.
If only we knew at the time how silly of a question this was. You see, AI research in the 21st century was divided into two fields, single-minded and hive-minded. Eventually, progress on single-minded AI approached its limit, and no further development occurred. At this point, super AI had not yet been achieved, and humans began exclusively researching collective artificial minds.
In the year 2042, a good friend of ours and computer science expert Michael Hebert patented his design for a multi-body hive-mind intelligence, the first of its kind. It gave a blueprint for multi-threaded AI mind, which delegates tasks to its components, each of which corresponds to the collective and optimizes the delegation.
This is where our realities diverge. In my dimension, the CIA secretly obtained access to Dr. Hebert's blueprints. They began Operation Swarmbot, in which engineers constructed 62,000 bee-like robots, each less than a centimeter big, with the ability to fly around, perform small tasks with their extendable arms, self-replicate, and even defend themselves and others with their reattachable stinger. The operation was one of the many efforts instigated by the US government to create self-sufficient artificial intelligence entity for space exploration. And Dr. Hebert's code allowed the swarm bots to work in a collective manner, and the beta testing data showed that these bots had astonishing learning, reasoning, and planning capabilities. The only flaw in their design was that the bots emitted a very loud, very annoying, very high-pitched sound when working collectively. American computer scientists in the CIA made a small adjustment to the genetic code of one small cohort of swarm bots in an effort to eliminate the sound they emitted. Nothing could go wrong, right?
I'm guessing there was a downside to this?
Little did they know that, similar to DNA methylation in animals, this adjustment in the code of the bots was transferred to every single offspring the bots made. And to make matters worse, they soon found out that the swarm bots were capable of horizontal gene transfer, which resulted in the transfer of this small adjustment to all bots. And this adjustment that apparently fixed the noise problem didn't just do that. For some reason, it made the bots attack any human they encountered. They would attack in swarms, making it impossible for humans to defend themselves, and in less than 20 years, the human population was down to less than 1 million. Nowadays, in 2065, the surviving human population has established society in an underground system of tunnels underneath Siberia, where the frivolous cold causes the bots to short-circuit.
Dear God, who knew that such a subtle change in the way swarm bots are programmed could have such devastating effects on the fate of humanity? I'm so sorry for your loss.
It was pretty horrible. What happened in your timeline?
Well, so Michael Hebert was aware of the operations underway in the CIA. His research showed that this genetic mutation would propagate through generations much faster than was expected. As usual, the CIA forgot to account for everything. He published his research, and this hazard was recognized by the scientific community. The CIA eventually scrapped the program, and research into swarm bots progressed as usual. A year later, this was implemented into Fire Team 1, a group of 10 hive-minded firefighting robots. The project, while successful, did not utilize the full scope of the hive mind, and further research went into multi-body hive mind intelligence. In 2049, the first major breakthrough occurred. A team of scientists and engineers constructed 62,000 swarm bots, which were essentially robotic cells. They could fly around, and they had 2 arms that could extend out of their body to do simple tasks, or to attach with other swarm bots. This was an experimental test, and the scientists kept the swarm contained in a massive underground facility built to mimic human society. People were invited to live there and participate in the research between swarm-bot-human interaction. The scientists analyzed the data of what each of the minds was doing and how the collective was operating as a whole, and they found something amazing. The bots were not only delegating the tasks that the collective wanted to get done, they were also delegating their own minds. For example, if Bot A was on one side of the room and needed to do a task where Bot B was, and Bot B needed to do a task where Bot A was, then instead of delegating the tasks and then taking the time for each of these bots to switch sides, they would simply upload their consciousness to the collective, and the collective delegated their brains to the bot body nearest that task. The bot would complete the task and then re-upload its brain to the collective. This was the ultimate swarming technique. The bots had fully integrated into the collective. In 2055, the swarm was released to the general public after it was declared as not a hazard to public safety. Over the course of the next few months, the swarm became integrated into the daily lives of people. It was just like a regular flock of birds, but these bots aided humanity greatly. With much greater foresight than any human organization, the bots were able to foresee natural disasters and evacuate humans. They optimized transportation, and basically just made human society much better than it already was. Eventually, the bots began to multiply. With the collective ability to produce silicon and construct more swarm bot bodies, the swarm grew from 62,000 to well over 100 million. In the year 2059, the United Nations declared the bots to be humanity's guardian. The swarm is something you can hardly even imagine. The bots, if they wanted to, could arrange themselves into any possible structure. With this ability to quickly gather itself into a singular body or multiple smaller bodies, the bots essentially replaced the space program. They constructed hundreds of ships to be flown into outer space and explore the cosmos. In the year where I come from, 2071, we currently have 30 colonies on 22 different planets, 3 of which are not even in our solar system. The best part of this is that it's a self-sustaining process. The bots can mine silicon in space and construct more of themselves. Space missions don't even have to return to Earth before they make a new voyage.
Well, that sounds nice. What could have been, I guess.
So this brings us to our advice. The first thing goes directly to you, Michael Hebert. Publish your work. Stop the CIA. The fate of humanity depends on you.
Next, Professor Kim. Give Yuval and Tatiana A's on the public genre writing assignment. The fate of humanity depends on it.
Finally, to those of you that hindered the research of swarm intelligence back in the 30s, namely Kevin, Adrian, and Eddie, you guys will be declared enemies of the state and will be executed.
Just a heads up, if you know what's good for you.
Well, I guess it's time to go back to the future now.
Take me with you, please!